Welcome, everyone. I'm Trish Sadar, coming to you from the Women Leadership Summit for Emerging Leaders. Our theme, Unlock the Power of You. You're going to absolutely love today's speaker. Her name is Christina Eanes. Christina has over 15 years of experience in public service, first with the police department and then as an FBI senior manager. While with the Bureau, she worked on a variety of programs, including the FBI's Leadership Development Program, where she led a team of government and leadership experts to improve and shift the leadership culture at the Bureau. Christina founded Eanes Coaching and Consulting, LLC, a firm specializing in self-empowerment and leadership development. Christina is a certified professional coactive coach. She's going to share with us today how to have and how to get leadership presence.
So Chris, can you tell us a little bit about how do you get the leadership presence as an emerging leader? I'm just starting off as a leader, or I want to be a leader. How do you get it? How do you have it?
Wow. So there's a lot involved in presence. And I've heard from so many different areas, people are concerned about what shoes are you wearing? What suit are you wearing? Are you wearing a skirt? Are you wearing hose? All the external stuff, right? But presence, it's really about thoughts, what's going on in your head.
Okay.
Because what's going on in your head shows in your body, in your presence. So, for example, if you're feeling little, belittled, or I'm not good enough, you're going to show that in your body. You're going to be slouched. You're going to be closed. I've seen so many women not take up space. Their legs are crossed, their arms are crossed, they're slouched in their chairs. But the leadership presence is all about taking up space with your body, your voice, and that all begins with your thoughts. So if you walk into a room and you feel confident and powerful, you're automatically going to have your shoulders back. You're going to take up your space with your voice and your body.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really all about what's going on in your head.
Now, does that mean that I sit down on the table and I take up, put all my notes and my papers across the table? What do I do there? Because I've seen people, kind of take up a lot of space in that perspective in a meeting and things like that. What does that say about a leader?
That they own the room. Really, that they're owning themselves. So, what I like about that is, now, when I say take up space, I also don't mean like encroaching on other people's space. That can turn into more of a predatory situation, right?
Okay.
But it's really looking relaxed, comfortable, not closed. And that can involve putting out your notes, but you don't even have to have notes. It's really about walking into that room in your head thinking, I got this, and that shows up in how you hold yourself and how you talk.
Wow.
It's amazing, yes.
Now, when you first started at the FBI, did you have that presence when you interviewed? Tell me a little about your story and how presence became a big part of your leadership, what you coach and what you teach, and how you help others through that.
Oh, great question. I actually started out with presence as a small child, believe it or not.
Wow,
I became aware of it at a very young age. I grew up in the mountains of New Mexico up until age 15, and then from then on I was in Southern California. And in both areas, it was quite unusual to be a pale redhead. So it's almost like I stood out wherever I was. And I had a choice, and I knew this as a child. I don't know how, maybe instinctively or whatnot. I knew that there was going to be attention on me because I was a little different. So I knew I could either choose to fall into it, if you will, or shy away from it. And I decided as a child it was okay for people to notice me, and oftentimes I notice that with presences, people are afraid to be seen.
Right.
And yes, and as a small child, just being a little different, I knew I was going to be seen, so I decided to enjoy it. So that's when I actually really started focusing on how I was standing, how I was showing up to others. And that led to, honestly, I think that is a big part of my success. I became a manager in a police department at age 28. And from there on, I just really quickly went up the ladder in whatever organization I went. And I think it's because I went in with the idea that whatever happens, I got this. And it showed up in how I held myself.
So that is, if I'm understanding correctly, that's the one mantra that was going through your head from when you were young, that you knew you were being noticed, and you said, it's okay, it's great that people notice me, and you just said in your mind, I've got this in any situation.
Yes, very well stated.
So you said before that your body and presence needs to be relaxed, and you need to be perceived as comfortable, and you need to walk in like you own the room. For those new leaders that aren't quite there yet, what could they do to help themselves to build that confidence?
Oh, I'm laughing because I still do this.
Okay.
I love doing this. There is, I'm sure you've heard of power poses.
Yes.
Yes. So it's actually, and you could just do, for those that are listening, they can do a search on YouTube on power poses. There are actually research studies done. I can't remember where. Maybe Stanford, where if you stand in a power pose for 2 minutes, you're going to feel more confident and powerful. So not only do our thoughts affect our presence, but our body can affect our thoughts, which can affect our presence.
Wow.
So literally, you can do this with me now if you want. Put your hands up in the air. You know, like when the runners, they cross the finish line and they put their hands up in the air like they've just won the World Cup or something.
That's right.
Or
like a big V, right?
Yes, a big V. If you put that up and you just stand up straight, you can't help but feeling good about yourself. And actually, I used to go. I have a lot of girlfriends. We would do this together just for fun, and we'd go superstar, and then put your arms up in a big V. You automatically, you can't help not feeling good about yourself when you're doing that. And we actually teach that in our presentations course and our presence course. Before someone's going to go speak to a large group of individuals, we actually have them go into the bathroom and do like the superstar pose for 2 minutes, and they come out feeling like they can take on the world. It's an amazing transformation to watch.
Wow, what a great tip. And you said you still do that before a meeting, and it always helps you.
Yeah. Just for fun, even.
Yeah, absolutely. So the physical, great tip on that. What about, I'm about to walk into that meeting where all these executives are there, and I'm just moving up, and this is my opportunity to shine, and I start getting in my mind negative thoughts, like what am I doing here? Am I going to mess up? Am I not good enough? What advice do you have for us to do that?
Oh, wow. There's so many different areas we could go here. Well, first, one is understanding that everyone in that room is a human being, too. They all have to get up and get dressed in the morning. They all have to take a shower, do their hair as well. We're all humans. So, one, that always helps me, especially when I had to go into rooms with, even the director of the FBI. He's a human being. And knowing that we're all human beings and it's all really about perception. If I choose to think of them as better than me or like I'm going to mess up, then I'm going to react that way. My body's going to react that way. My mind's going to react that way. We attribute that in coaching to what we call saboteurs, which are those voices in your head that we originally developed them when we were younger as a survival mechanism. But now they tend to be very destructive. Those are the voices that are saying, oh, you're going to screw up. Oh, you just said something real stupid. Actually, I have a great resource for that. Have you ever heard of the book Positive Intelligence?
No, Positive Intelligence? I haven't.
Yeah, Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin. It talks about all of those different voices in your head, and he actually categorizes them into 10 different types of voices.
Interesting.
Yes, like a common one would be the pleaser. I've got to please people so they'll like me. The avoider, the victim, So you can go into those, and he actually has an assessment up on his website. If you go to, it's positiveintelligence.com and then /assessments. There's an assessment for literally figuring out which saboteurs have a grip on you. And then he provides you with a whole bunch of different resources for how to, one, be aware of them, and I mean, you really can't get rid of them, but how to either distract them or ignore them so that they don't take over your life as much.
Chris, that is such an outstanding suggestion. I mean, if anyone's focusing on their leadership, self-awareness, that's a really key tool that they could use to help with that. So thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah, there's some sort of power in being able to name that voice and go, oh, that's just silly, speedy Consuela. She feels like she's got to get everything done right away. You know, go on vacation, Consuela. I'm just going to sit here and focus on this meeting. You know?
I love that. That's great. That is a great suggestion. So once we name that thought, we're able to just say, okay, cancel or move to the side. You know, that's not really happening right now. We're able to manage ourselves a little bit more.
Yeah, it kind of takes away the power of it over us.
It takes away the power.
Yeah, because it really is just a story that we're telling ourselves. And what's amazing about that is we can change it because it's completely in our control how we experience every moment of our life. You can look at the same situation and decide, well, this is going to be, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, blah, blah, blah. Or you can turn and look at it, wow, this gave me a great gift, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So tell me, just shifting gears, when you were in the FBI, you were working in a very male-dominated environment. And what observations did you make about the environment and about yourselves and other women in that environment that we can all learn from?
Oh, interestingly, yes. A fascinating study that I have had over the many years. I've so enjoyed watching. In the most interesting part, the most obstacles that I faced in a male-dominated industry were other women.
You're kidding me.
No, it is amazing.
Wow.
There's so much going. I know. And you would think, especially in a male-dominated industry, that the women would bond together in a sisterhood and support each other in advancement. Right. But no, it was, and I find this in a lot of, I mean, I've heard women from other different industries as well that are male-dominated. It's almost like they're competitive with each other and bully each other instead of supporting each other. So that was very frustrating. So I've actually tried to start a movement with girls, doing various little leadership workshops and helping them realize, we use the quote, blowing out my candle won't make yours glow brighter.
I like that.
And helping, yeah, I know, huh? and helping other women realize that they need to support each other instead of bully each other, really.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I did notice about women in those industries, and myself included in the beginning, I very quickly decided not to do that, but women would try to be who they weren't. And I saw them going several different ways in a male-dominated industry. They would either make fun of themselves for being women. For example, what pops to mind is one woman would say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late for the meeting. I had trouble parallel parking. You know, women in parallel parking. So doing stuff like that, or showing up in overtly sexy, sexual-type clothing, or trying to be more like the men, really short haircuts, no makeup, suits. I mean, it was amazing.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, I know. So the women that were showing up confident, being themselves, whether they were quote-unquote feminine or not, were the ones I noticed that really excelled and got along the easiest in the male-dominated industry.
Well, that is such a great observation, because so far you've given us two key tips that we can use right away. One is the posture, right, the power pause, and the other is how to be aware of the thoughts, and you gave us a great assessment for that. And this observation think it's a top lesson for all of us to learn from you and from other role models is, in order to be successful, we need to be ourselves. Right?
Exactly.
We have to, yeah.
And
those
be
are the ones you
comfortable
said.
with being ourselves.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And tell me a little bit more. You were talking about the thoughts. Tell me a little bit more about how our thoughts really can affect the presence in the long term, and what else can we do other than just being aware of it? What can we do to manage it? Because now that we're aware that we get into that situation, we can say, okay, stop doing that, Trish,
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to manage at that point?
Okay. Actually, awareness is a huge part of it. Once I started studying perception, it's like a whole new world opened up for me. So much so that all of our speeches, webinars, and courses here at MindSpring are based on becoming aware of your mindset and how much it impacts you and how you show up. I think that's what makes us different. It's all about your mindset. Because as humans, we have stories for everything, and it's amazing how often we can be so far off base. Okay, for example, in our class on conflict, we teach the 7 concepts of conflict, and the first one is your mind is not the center of the universe. I love that one.
Okay.
So, as I had discussed before, by age 7, we've developed these voices in our heads, and we call them JBOPs. Judgments, beliefs, opinions, perceptions. And I like to think of these. I know, huh? I like to think of these as like a pair of glasses that we've created through our experiences, and we put them on and we filter everything that happens to us through these glasses. A good example would be I decided that, based on past experiences, that the way one of my bosses had behaved towards me meant that she didn't like me.
Right.
And so and this is what's interesting about JBOPs, once you decide on something, you collect evidence to prove it, right? So every time she frowned in a meeting or said something that I thought was disparaging, it was against me. It was something that I had done wrong, of course, right? So I went through this process telling myself this story for 6 months. And then I found out from a couple of other people that she actually saw me as a very valued member of her management team. And she relied on me for everything. And then it was like the whole story fell apart. And I went back and looked at all of this evidence that I had gathered over the last 6 months and realized that I could have interpreted her behavior in a completely different way if I had had a different set of glasses on. So it was very scary. I know. Well, and here's the scary thing, though. Our thoughts also affect our bodies. So for every psychological event, there is a physiological response. So by looking at things in this negative manner, whatever JBOP we've created, we're stressing ourselves out and literally making ourselves sick. And it all starts with a thought that we chose to have. We chose to look at it that way. So it was pretty eye-opening when I realized I had complete control how I responded to life's events. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it was a realization that I get to choose how I want to experience every moment of every day. And I think really that is the key. You figure out that you have complete control over how you experience external events. And you have to stop that automatic reaction we get into and choose at that moment. Excuse me, we actually teach that in one of our classes too. We call it the linear arrangement of the mind. Have you ever seen Caesar 911 or Dog Whisperer?
I haven't. Tell me about that.
Okay. Cesar Millan, genius. He totally understands this automatic reaction mode that we go into. So at first we're triggered, and then there's a physiological response in our body. Like we get our jaw clenches. Sometimes we get stomach, different for each person. We get something like butterflies in our stomach, a chest pain, something to that effect. We get some sort of response, and then we go into an angry, and then it's just like an automatic response mode when you're triggered. He understands that in dogs, and he can see it the moment a dog starts going into that physiological response. and he'll interrupt it, and they immediately start behaving. Well, it's the same with us humans. So we see something, we immediately get triggered, we feel that sensation in our body. If we can find a way to stop it right then, we won't go into that automatic reaction mode, and then we can sit and question, well, is my perception correct in this situation? Could there be another story behind this? And then we're not automatically reacting, we're actually responding to the situation.
That is an excellent story. So in all of those situations, before my hot button gets pushed, I need to get into the awareness mode enough to be able to almost go into neutral, where I can ask the right questions to make sure that my J-Bobs, as you call them, that I'm not judging and I'm not, doing all of my beliefs, that I haven't built the evidence for the wrong story, that really what I'm looking at is logical and objective, and I haven't tainted it with my subjective opinion, right?
Yes, exactly. An example that really helps solidify it that I use is, let's say you're speaking to a group at a meeting, and you see in the back of the meeting a guy rolls his eyes. And so that could be a trigger. And then, of course, you get this, clenched feeling in your body, and your mind automatically starts racing. How dare he roll his eyes at me? How did he? Why? He's such a, what? Blah blah blah.
Right.
Instead, stopping it the minute you feel that clench and asking. I mean, you can literally ask the person, "Am I right in thinking you disagree with me?" Or just thinking it in your head. I mean, he could have been rolling his eyes because he got a text from a colleague or something.
That's right.
So it's stopping it at that moment of the clenching, I call it.
Right.
And really starting to question instead of make a bunch of assumptions.
And if we get into practice, or let's say when we get into practice of stopping it, first being aware, secondly, being able to pause and ask ourselves those questions. If we do go into that mode, and will we be able to manage ourselves much better so we're not reacting and we're able to respond more deliberately?
Yes. And it does take a lot of practice.
Okay.
And here's the fun thing too. The saboteurs like to get involved when you mess up. So they'll start beating you up, those thoughts coming. How did you let yourself go? You reacted. You just put them away and say, I'm human, I'm learning, I'm going to continue practicing.
That is great. So whenever we start saying those things to each other and like you said, beating ourselves up in our minds, we need to just reboot and just be kinder to ourselves and just say, I'm human.
Exactly.
I've learned from this. I'll be better the next time. And, and just be honest with ourselves so we can grow.
Exactly. Yeah, oftentimes we give other people so many more chances and so much more compassion than we give ourselves.
That is so true. That is so true, Chris. Chris, you've given us such great advice. Do you have any other last-minute tidbits? Because the tools you've given us so far, I'm sure that every single leader listening will certainly be able to apply them immediately. Do you have any last thoughts on what we need to know, do, and how we need to be in order to have that presence and also to be able to make sure that our perception is really being measured in that logical way?
Oh, yes. Okay, let's see here. Know that you choose how you experience every moment of every day.
Okay.
Do become more aware of how your perceptions impact how you, as well as others, see the world. And finally, be yourself rather than trying to fit into a box that you believe society or someone else wants you to be in.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Chris, thank you so much for all your pearls of wisdom, your gold nuggets. I loved every minute of it. I'm sure everyone else did. Can you tell us a little bit about the wonderful gift that you're giving to all of our listeners?
Well, we're actually in the process of creating a webinar on JBOPs. And we're going to post that on our website for those that sign up for our newsletter. So all they need to do is go to our website, and there's a little box that says sign up for the newsletter, and they'll get on our mailing list. And we should have this produced in the next couple of weeks, and we'll put it out there to the mailing list, and they can watch a whole hour of in-depth information on JBOPS.
I love it. I love it. I'll certainly be doing that. And can you tell us where to find a little bit more about you, your website? We'll have a link, but for those who are listening right now, if you could just tell us what the website link is.
Sure. It is mindspringmetrodc.com, which is mindspringmetrodc.com. We've got a lot of information up there. We've got a lot of blogs on perception, leadership, thinking styles, emotional intelligence. A lot of free stuff to go look at and peruse, and then, of course, information on myself and my business partner.
Wonderful. Well, Chris, thank you again for taking part in our Women Leadership Summit. It's been so valuable, our time with you today, so thank you again.
Oh, and thank you for doing this, too. This is great.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I really hope that you enjoyed this session.